The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Today is Thursday. It is April 7th, 2022, and welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. We have a lot to cover, many miles to go. As always, we begin our days with Black history. We like to root and steep everything that we do here in Black history. Before we get to that clip, there's a lot of stories that we want to cover, but one of the things that's on my mind this morning, if you all don't mind, if I just kind of take a little detour, is the level of disingenuousness and bad faith that's happening on the global scale. But on the global scale, you're seeing a level of disingenuousness, and that's putting it lightly, right? When it comes to COVID-19, when it comes to the war in Ukraine, when it comes to war, period, right? When it comes to the war in Yemen, Syria, we see that there's a level of outright denialism, and the denialism is mixed with a new level of transphobia, xenophobia, bigotry. It's really kind of I don't have a non-profane word to say here. It's really kind of a shit show when you think about exactly how deep into denialism you have to be at the stage where you can now look at this pandemic and say, it's nothing, or it's over. Or you could look at the people who died in Mariupol, in Bucha, Ukraine, and say whatever excuse has to be come up with, you have to come up with in order to justify what's happening on a global stage. And even more precisely for this particular discussion this morning is the climate. How much this system is, this entire global system. It's not just the United States of America. It's quite frankly, every powerful country in this world, every country that's still dependent on fossil fuels. We are at the stage of decline where we can no longer depend on science because people ignore it. Political leaders, propagandists, media companies like Fox News, not just Fox News, but all the way around the board, our mainstream media who puts up other voices to contradict what the scientific community has says as it pertains to climate change. And you have media outlets who put up people who have no qualifications whatsoever to challenge climate change or challenge the science behind climate change. I mean, in every major category of issues that matter, good Lord, I almost forgot. It's so much going on that I almost forgot that just yesterday, prosecutors in Minnesota decided not to file charges against the police officers who executed a no-knock warrant on Amir Locke, a young man who was sleeping on Saturday morning underneath his blankets. And the police officer stormed in and killed him, executed him. And yet we have a justice system that says, this is just kind of what we have to tolerate in order to maintain our system. This is where we are. The justification behind a lot of these police officers who get away with murder is that, well, we have to give them the leverage. We have to give them the space to be able to make these kind of mistakes. But those mistakes always come at the expense of a human life, particularly Black life, particularly the lives of Black men. So on the issue of Black lives, on the issue of climate, on the issue, and I'm trying to tone it down. I'm really trying to dial myself back. I know a lot of people aren't used to this particular type of diatribe from the morning show. We try to laugh. We try to have fun. We've been trying to work on creating an environment where we could break the news to you without breaking you. But as I look at the news, I think perhaps we all need to just come to grips with the fact that there's a war going on and we are all involved in it. And it is a war between people of good faith and bad faith, period. People who will look at the evidence and change their minds accordingly. versus people who never intended to change their minds in the first place. In fact, they laugh at the fact that you spent so much time researching all that. We're dealing with conservatives who laugh at the fact that scientific community is doing everything they can to save the world, but all they have to do is get on Fox News and say, like Ted Cruz said on NPR, he said, I'm going to challenge this science because my parents were engineers. I lie not to you. This is exactly what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a cabal of bad faith actors on the international stage, particularly here in the United States, who are 100% willing to look at the sun and say that it is the moon, to look at the water and say that it is the grass, so long as that lie is sufficient to maintain power for one more news cycle. That's it. They want to maintain power for one more news cycle, and they don't care who they have to hurt. They don't care who they have to kill, quite frankly, because people are dying. Let's get this straight. People are dying, and more people are going to die because now we have the bad faith actors like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's willing to go full village idiot, more like a mush-faced Neanderthal, who's willing to go on television and to declare that all the Democrats are pedophiles. We have that clip coming up later on. She declared that anybody who's supporting Ketanji Brown Jackson is a pedophile supporter. This is where we are, right? The distinguished Black woman who is going to be appointed to the Supreme Court now has to deal with accusations of being soft on pedophiles. Because as we all know, the Republican Party absolutely would never do anything to harm children. All right. Coming up later on in this episode, in this first segment, we're going to be talking with Andrea May Sahui. She's a social justice reporter with the Des Moines Register in Iowa. And we're also always going to be joined by Georgia Fort during On the Clock, Rebecca Zor and DJ Exclusive. They'll all be here. Dr. Carl Mack had a chance to speak with him yesterday. He's doing great. He is working on calendars, plural. This is a brother who is committed to Black history, the accurate Black history, and not just the history that is sanitized and whitewashed for the masses by American textbooks. No, he is working on history that is very clearly rooted in good faith and in truth. To that end, let's begin. Google, what happened today in Black history?
On April 7, 1915, Eleanor Fagan, better known as singer Billie Holiday, was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Holiday was one of the most talented blues singers of her time. Known as Lady Day, she recorded such hits as Strange Fruit and God Bless the Child. In life, Holiday was never nominated for a Grammy. In death, she has been posthumously nominated for 23 Grammy Awards and has posthumously been the recipient of 4 Grammy Awards, and posthumously been inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. Adapted from Black Heritage Day calendar by author, lecturer and civil rights activist Dr. Carl Mack.
Billie Holiday, strange fruit. Southern trees bear a strange fruit. Blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from popular trees. That's the opening lyrics to Billie Holiday's classic Strange Fruit, which speaks about the lynching of Black people throughout this country's history. And it's just fitting that on a day that we're facing so much disingenuousness, so many bad faith arguments, so many people who would look at lynching and say, no, it didn't really happen that way, or try to justify it. The same people who went to church on Sunday mornings and lynched people Sunday afternoon, or lynched them before service on Sunday. That same ideological precursor, that same philosophical underpinning, right? That stuff does not just go away with one generation. We're talking about a country, the United States of America, that literally just made lynching a hate crime in 2022. This is what we're dealing with, and it is most certainly strange fruit. I want to touch very briefly on the war in Ukraine. Russia-Ukraine war crimes and sanctions. Sanctions are mounting as more war crimes are being reported. The mayor of the besieged city port of Mariupol put the number of civilians killed there at more than 5,000. Now, this is reporting from about a month ago, a battle that took place in the city of Mariupol. They are reporting now that the total casualties or 5,000, including civilians, women, and children. Ukrainian authorities continue gathering up dead and shattered towns outside of the capital amid telltale signs. Moscow's troops killed civilians indiscriminately before retreating over the past several days. The mayor said that of the more than 5,000 civilians killed during the weeks of Russian bombardment and street fighting, 210 were children. He said the Russian forces bombed hospitals, including one where 50 people burned to death. The mayor also said that 90% of the city's infrastructure was destroyed. The attacks on the strategic southern city on the Sea of Azov have been cut off from food, water, medicine, and they have pulverized homes and businesses. This is the reality that is being reported from Ukraine. And yet we're still dealing with a faction of people in this country, both on the right, the conservative right, the Fox News deranged right, the people who will look at this and say that they would rather support Vladimir Putin than the United States of America. I mean, this is really a turn of events. We should have always known that Republicans will be willing to dispense with America, to do away with patriotism, to destroy America if it ever became inconvenient for them. And perhaps they'll keep the name America on this country, United States of America on this country. But after they have gained enough legislatures across this country, after the Republican Party has gained enough legislatures across this country, they will be able to amend the Constitution. This is what they're going for. These are the same people who could look at the dead bodies in Mariupol and say it didn't happen or it was a false flag. It's the same people who could look at what's happening in Bucha and say it didn't happen. It's a false flag. It's the same people who could look at the dead bodies in the streets of Ukraine and say that they would rather identify with Vladimir Putin because Joe Biden is in the White House and they don't like that he's a Democrat. We are literally dealing with people who will burn this country to the ground simply because they don't like your political affiliation. They don't like your race. And God forbid you happen to be transgender. We'll get to that in a minute. Coming up, we'll be speaking to Andrea May Sahuri. She's a social justice reporter with the Des Moines, Iowa. And we're also going to be speaking at 8:30, as always, on the clock with Georgia Ford. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what's happening in Minneapolis. It is really a sad state of affairs happening in Minneapolis. I had a chance to speak with Georgia yesterday, and we just talked about how that city is the epicenter for so many things. And in this case, I know it's St. Paul tied in with Minneapolis, but that Twin City area has been besieged with so much just since George Floyd. But let's not forget Philando Castile and all the other people in that area who have been killed by police officers. We're going to be talking with Georgia Ford about how it is that a young man could be sleeping on his couch on a Saturday morning and the police enter without knocking and execute him and no one be held accountable. That's where we are. And we're going to be discussing that with Georgia Ford momentarily. I want to make one shift here as we get ready to move into our first interview. And I want to just talk about this last little sliver of the conversation about bad faith actors. We are at the point in the point of human history where now microplastics have been found in lungs and the blood of living people. We were talking about the bad faith actors as it pertains to climate change. We have plenty of evidence that the environment has been damaged, and now we are damaging our own bodies. I want to read this from The Guardian. They are reporting that traces of microplastic pollution have been found in human blood for the first time. Scientists reportedly found tiny plastic particles in nearly 80% of people tested. The potential impact on health remains unknown. Microplastics have been found to cause damage to human cells in a laboratory setting. Vast amounts of plastic waste continue to be dumped into the environment every single day. The Guardian continues. It reports that microplastics now contaminate the entire planet. The Guardian also reports that these microplastics were found in 11 out of 13 samples taken from lung tissues of patients undergoing surgery. But yet we're dealing in a generation of propaganda that will simply look at this, and if they're not able to ignore it because of the absurdity of our news cycle and how hard it is to actually be able to pay attention to every detail, if they can't ignore it, then they will hire scientists to contradict this, right? To contradict this, to make up their own science. And then they will go on the news and promote that and say, yes, there's 1% of scientists who disagree with 99% of scientists. And here we are, exactly where we are in the history of the world, on the precipice of climate disaster, simply because oil and energy barons do not want to change their infrastructure. They do not want to go through the process. They do not want to go through the investment, and they simply do not want to relinquish the control that they have over our entire infrastructure and our entire civilization. That said, I want to move now to the interview with Andrea Mae Sahuri. Again, she is a social justice reporter with the Des Moines, Iowa. And first and foremost, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. We are covering so many stories around the world. We've had a chance on our show this morning to, not this particular morning, but talk about the Ukrainian refugees across the globe. And I know you have a recent article in which you discuss the refugees who have now, Afghan refugees who have not only been left without resources, but they are in a dire situation. Could you bring us up to date on what's happening there?
Yeah. So, in Iowa, in Des Moines, there are 3 resettlement agencies. And prior to the Afghan, humanitarian crisis, during the Trump administration, resettlement infrastructure in the country, across the country, had basically been gutted. So, when we talk to resettlement agencies in the years prior, they would be resettling dozens of people, and then they would be able to find them affordable housing faster. They would be able to provide those core essential resources faster and more efficient. And then, the Taliban took over Afghanistan, and you had a flock of people coming, to the United States, Iowa included. Iowa has a large history of accepting refugees. And so we have to date over 900 Afghans come to Iowa, and many of them came in a very short period of time. So very much overwhelmed resettlement agencies. They had to hire more people, but that still doesn't seem to be enough. There's food, hotels. Afghans have been in hotels, extended stay hotels, for 4 months or longer, even people who are individual, not just families. Iowa also has a huge affordable housing issue. And so coupled that with just the sheer number and the sheer speed of Afghans coming into Iowa, there's just a lot of families falling through the gaps. And I know that resettlement agencies are working so hard, but they don't have the capacity to respond to every single need like the Afghans are asking for and also need. And so as you see, you have Afghans really frustrated, resettlement agencies frustrated. We have talked to families where their children have gone without food for up to a week. One family that I had spoke to, a family of 14, their kids started knocking on neighbors' doors begging for food and milk. And it just seems like there's a lot of miscommunication, just a big struggle to find them permanent housing and to really get them on their feet. But, without, coming from a resettlement infrastructure that was gutted, it's been really, really difficult and overwhelming.
So
that's kind of the sum of it.
I had a chance to read your article, and the headline itself is something that gripped me. Afghan family living in Urbandale Hotel says the military camp was better and that they cried. I want to juxtapose this to the disparate treatment that we get across the board for refugee asylum seekers. We see that in some cases, particularly with the darker the hue, the more melanin, Haitian refugees and asylum seekers at the border being whipped. We've covered that extensively. And we see now that even those asylum seekers who are able to get to this country, they're not all treated the same. How is it that these individuals are unable to even get food, which at the core of that, housing is important, but if they cannot eat, how do we get to this place? You said that the breaking part of our resettlement system.
I think, again, we need more, there needs to be, and resettlement agencies have said this, they're overwhelmed. They're trying their best to get people food. They're trying to not let people go hungry. it's just we need to bolster. They say that we need to bolster our infrastructure. That means providing more funding. That means providing extended programs for extended case management, because right now the federal system allows for 90 days of assistance. And in this case, these Afghans need much more than 90 days of assistance. So, resettlement agencies are advocating for that. Obviously, again, more funding, just more sustainable infrastructure in place, so that when, another president that might come along decides to gut resettlement infrastructure again, their services won't be impacted. So I think that's what the resettlement agencies right now are looking towards, because they are very overwhelmed. And, there's a lot of expectations that Afghans are grappling with. I know when I spoke to, they were told different things at the bases. They were told that they would get, $1,225, and that money actually goes to the resettlement agencies. They were told, they would have much better living situations, and that, the resettlement agencies would take care of them, which again, they're trying, but they're just, it's just the sheer number and the sheer speed. It's just so overwhelming, and there needs to be more infrastructure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so many angles on this, speaking about the infrastructure and those agencies. Are those agencies federal, state agencies, or are they private agencies?
So they're nonprofit, but they, and then they receive federal aid. Mm-hmm. So okay, so
they're not government. They're so like non-governmental NGOs.
Yes. Yes.
So so one thing that I did not know, and I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that's a place for us to actually explore, is that the money that was promised to those refugees did not go to the refugees, but went to an agency. Let me ask one other question. In your conversations with the families, did any of the conversations go to, or do you have any thoughts on the sheer magnitude of refugees that are coming to our country because of our foreign policy? Because in this country, a lot of people try to make it seem as though these people simply just want to come to America. But in many cases, they have to come to America. And in some cases, it's because of our foreign policy. Was that ever a part of a conversation, or do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah. First, I would like to clarify, yes, the money does not go directly to the families, but that's federal policy. So the agencies follow federal policy. That money goes to the agency so they can pay rent, they can give them food, they can give them pocket money. So that's per person. I just wanted to clarify that. It's not
absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Yeah. But in terms of foreign policy, we did have a huge motif among the Afghans was that they were extremely upset that they, helped the Americans in Afghanistan and risked their lives in Afghanistan, fighting with the Americans, and, recalled memories of the Americans saying, this is we're brothers. And then they get here, and, one family I spoke to said that he feels like he was a prisoner, and he was in the special forces in Afghanistan. And he felt very insulted and very hurt because, we're here because they felt that they were betrayed by, the country that they helped fight for in terms of foreign policy. I hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely. I would think most certainly that the refugees here have quite the opinion and quite the take on the reason that they are here. I want to thank you for this reporting, because it oftentimes happens that refugees and asylum seekers are dehumanized across the board by all groups of people, especially situations like we're finding. Thank you so much for continuing to put a human face on this condition.
Yes, thank you. That's my favorite part of the job.
I'd love to have you back soon. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to be on the clock with Georgia Fort. There are many, many, many miles to go on this episode. The Benjamin Dixon Morning Show will be back right after this. Don't got no heart, I got an icebox. Bring the roll and swap out the G-Shock. Moving slowly, I know the street hype. No more double, go ahead and detox.
Came from the trenches, they ain't showing us no love. Bagging in the city, all we wanted was a hug, yeah. We on the block like every night to catch a buzz. Get the cash and tell my family out the hood, that's a must. Was a good baby with no soldiers. Bad past never left my mind, it's taking over. No, I should've died, that's why it's hard to stay sober.
Good morning, everybody. Y'all know who it is. Y'all know the voice. Y'all know the sound. James Williams.
When you die the only time that they gon' miss you. Tell my mama no more tears, no more tissue. Ooh, just some hood baby with some issues. Hood baby.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
I had a hustle. Glad we made it through. I'm just glad we made it through. Hood baby from the struggle. Long time had a hustle. Glad we made it through. I'm just glad we made it through. Pull up in that rain, see me ballin', yeah. 30 piece on my wrist like I'm hard.
Good morning, everybody. Laura, good morning, Brother Bryce. Good morning, must be good. Roller Dragon, Iris Jones, Melanie Dennis, Laverne, Shane Dragon, Dozo Bob, what's going on? Esther Brochin, Bluebird, Brenda Johnson, good morning. Mama and Daddy, good morning to you. Promises Manifesting, good morning.
Step it up, I gotta be that. Cause life's so crazy, I'ma love you way before I gotta miss you. Hold this mama by my side, give her some
G-Man, good morning. Mary C. Brother Latif, what's going on?
Baby, from the struggle. Long time had a hustle. Glad we made it through.
Creative Impact. Creative Impact. Good morning to you, Brother Tiger. What's going on? Good morning.
Long time had a hustle. Glad we made it through.
Damani Gandy, good morning. Momi, good morning. Stephanie, good morning to you. Truth, good morning. Destiny, good morning to you. Six Dragon Daddy, shout out to you. Good morning. I know Spring Break ready. Okay. E Tweety 01, what's going on?
Baby, from the struggle. Long time had a hustle. I'm glad we made it through. I'm just glad we made it through. I'm glad we made it through. I'm just glad we made it through.
It's time to be on the clock. Good morning, y'all.
The Hennepin County Attorney, along with the Minnesota Attorney General, announced yesterday they will not be filing charges against the officer who fatally shot Amir Locke in February. You may remember we covered the case intensely. There were a lot of protests that happened here in Minnesota, some asking, was the uprising going to be reignited? Were people going to begin to take their frustrations out against property like they did 2 years ago following the murder of George Floyd? And although the protests remain peaceful, although people continue to just use their voice to express their grief and their frustration with the system that seems to not change, despite the way in which the community maintained their composure, attorneys locally are looking at this situation saying they don't see a way that they can hold this officer criminally responsible. And so that has reignited concerns within the community here in Minneapolis, folks who have said that because there was not change in the law, because there was not legislation that went through to prevent this from happening again. Here we are 2 years after the murder of George Floyd, where we have a man who's killed, right? And there's no accountability, no responsibility. So again, those who said that things were going to change after George Floyd, in my opinion, are proven wrong. Yes, there was another case we saw here locally with Kim Potter, who did face criminal charges, although she was only given 16 months in jail, right? And so now here we are with a third high-profile case in the same community where George Floyd was killed. And the results show that the system is going back to the way it was, going back to business as usual. I want you to take a listen. John Thompson, who is a Minnesota rep, he also was the friend of Philando Castile, who was fatally shot by police in 2016. Take a listen to his response to the news yesterday.
Thank you, Minnesota State Representative John Thompson. Where do I begin? Oh, I'm not psychic, I'm just black. We'll be here again. We'll be here again before the summer ends. I'm not psychic, I'm just black. Because of laws and statutes that are put on the books to defend this type of action. You see, they can go into the book and say, well, we can get this officer off on this. But you could also go in the books and say, I can charge this officer with this, something that you failed to do time and time again. You see, we can come up and change laws on how we can stop our young men from carjacking each other. We can pass a law, so we're going to get them a lot more time, but we can't pass laws to hold officers accountable for when they break the law. As a chef, and I'm not a chef, by the way, but as a chef, I can't feed you seafood and you're allergic to seafood and you lose your life because I'm going to jail. As an airline pilot, I can't crash land the airplane and somebody die because I'm going to jail. When are y'all gonna hold police accountable for when they crash land, when they botch no-knock warrants, right? When they choking black people? How about passing the anti-kill black people law right here in this state? How about we do that? Because it seems like it's just us asking for just us every year, just us. Black people losing their lives at the hands of police officers here in this state. And don't call me anti-police, don't call me in battle, because I'm nothing but a black man with a black plan. And I tell y'all what to do. Because we can't beat the law, let's change the law. Let's put our names on these books and challenge these lawmakers in these seats. Remember who disappointed you today. Indeed. Because they'll be knocking on your door tomorrow, asking for you to vote for them this November. Remember these people. Stop voting for these people time and time and time again, or you're comfortable with what you're getting. When you get somebody who is fighting for you, stick with them. You know doggone well who stood in front of the camera today and said that black people, it's okay for police officers to kill you. You know who stood in front of that camera, so you know who not to vote for.
That way.
It's a no-brainer for me. We can't beat the law, so we might as well change the law ourselves. We can't beat this. I remember now. Shut up. I remember.
He's a very passionate man, Ben, and he has his own personal experience. He lost his friend, Philando Castile, and that is really what inspired him to run for office. And because he's been so outspoken about police accountability, there has been a lot of attacks against his character and, his personal life under scrutiny, under a microscope. And so he's definitely paid a professional and personal sacrifice to try to lead on these issues. But even, Ben, yesterday we heard from Amir Locke's mother, who was traveling. She was in New York for a conference yesterday when she found out. And her response, she simply just said she's disgusted. She's disgusted that Keith Ellison, the attorney general, and Mike Friedman, the Hennepin County attorney, have looked at this case. They've looked at the body camera footage and determined that they won't file charges against Amir Locke, or the officer who killed Amir Locke.
Georgia, when you said the attorney general, I was like, Keith Ellison. And then I thought about all the, we followed each other on Twitter for some time, and I've seen him go from being a congressman to being a leader in the Democratic Party and now the attorney general there. But this is extremely disappointing. And it is one of those things where I actually absolutely agree with that state representative who spoke so powerfully there. Like that's exactly every word he said was exactly right. And it's sad to say, I just want to put this caveat here before I move on. It is very sad to say that we know that we will all be back here again before the end of the summer because of how these cycles go. They kill us on a cycle. But I digress. So the thing, Georgia, is that for Attorney Ellison, for anybody at this point to not say that we must change the laws if police officers are able to get away with this, lets us know where we stand with them. And I love Brother Ellison, love him. I'm sure there's some explanation. He'll give it on Twitter or somewhere in a few minutes. But at the end of the day, if these laws are killing us, they are unjust laws and they have to be changed.
Well, and, they held a press conference yesterday to, in brief, share their decision. But, when you really examine what happened to Amir Locke, you have a young man who's living in a very violent city who decided to go and get his license to carry. He did the right thing. He went about getting a gun the right way, the legal way, to protect himself, because his parents said he did DoorDash. And if you look in Minneapolis and see the amount of violent carjackings, even that have led to death, I mean, you can't blame anyone who is doing a service job with their vehicle for wanting to be armed. You can't blame them for wanting to protect themselves. And so he had a gun legally. He was staying the night over what I believe his family said was his cousin's house. The cousin's house was raided. He's sleeping on a couch. The officers had to kick the couch 2 times in order for him to even wake up after they entered the apartment. And so he was startled. He had a blanket over his head. He couldn't even see who was around him. And in trying to, in the few moments he had to try to wake up, he grabbed for his gun because he was scared. He didn't know who had broken into the home and what they were trying to do to him. And so when you even look at like organizations like the NRA, who are supposed to be advocates and allies for the right to bear arms, why don't we hear from them on this issue? And if an organization like that, a national organization, had intervened and stood up for this man who had the right to bear arms, that type of political pressure does encourage people like Keith Ellison or Mike Freeman to make a different decision, And so it saddens me, because yet again, when we examine these systems, this is what it looks like when we talk about inequities and we talk about racist systems and oppressive systems. This is what it looks like. Absolutely. If Amir Locke was, Billy, whatever, if he was a white boy, the NRA would be speaking up. The NRA would be outraged. They'd be in Minnesota themselves campaigning to change laws. But because he's Amir Locke, because he's a Black boy, the NRA is radio silent, And so that is the type of systemic racism that still perpetuates not just police departments, not just the criminal justice system, but even other organizations that have political capital and political power to make a difference.
Right. Those are the parts, right? Those are the key elements. And what's extremely infuriating about this situation is that it just shows you that this country is comfortable getting away with whatever they can justify. They're not looking for justice. They're looking to be able to justify killing us. And so long as they have control over the books, over the laws, over the legislatures, over the politicians, they buy politicians when they need to buy them. But at the end of the day, what happens is we get a police state. We get a police state that can walk into your home unannounced, no knock, wake you up, startle you, and kill you. And at the end of the day, it ends up being your fault, according to this justice system. There's no justice in this at all whatsoever. And we're going to have to ask a lot of questions of our dear brother who signed off on this as well.
Yeah, but Ben, they'll argue with you and they'll tell you, but no, they can't come in your house unannounced anymore. They've changed the law. There's now no more no-knock warrants for real this time. That's what they want you to believe. But I argue that those changes shouldn't have to come at the expense of Black lives.
Absolutely.
How do we evolve as a society to become preventative instead of reactive? Why does it take us to lose our loved ones for them to examine the system and acknowledge, okay, yeah, maybe something is wrong here? When we told you something was wrong here after Breonna Taylor, but you didn't listen because you said, oh, well, that's another city, that's another state, it doesn't apply. No, yes, it does. When are Black people going to be listened to? I'm so tired of all of these organizations, individuals, politicians, campaigning on equity, leading on equity, getting dollars for equity, marketing and positioning themselves on equity, diversity and inclusion, but when it boils down to it and you have Black people at the table who you invited to be there, you're not letting them lead. When you sit there and you say you're tired of it too, but when we offer solutions, you don't listen. So you can't sit here and continue to share all of this propaganda and use, Black marketing pictures on your website and on your brochures and feel like that's enough. It's not enough. Yeah. It's not enough. When you have Black people on your board who you refuse to listen to, who you've invited into a space that now has become an environment where they're hostile or they're the angry Black person. No, it's because you're not listening. It's because you do have the power to make a difference and you choose to keep twiddling your thumbs and act like you don't. It's really frustrating to be in the same community 2 years post George Floyd when the whole world stopped and said something's got to change. And then here we are. And this is evidence that the changes have not manifested. Even when you have Black people who are in a position of power. Keith Ellison is a Black man. He has Black son who serves on the city council locally. And yet and still he has to abide by and work within the confines of this system. And I also believe if you listen to some of his monologues during the Chauvin trial or the Potter trial, or his team's monologues, things that were said, they made it very evident that they are not anti-police. And I'm not saying that they should be, but they made it very evident that they wanted to maintain their allyship with the local police department, despite the fact that the Department of Justice is still investigating the Minneapolis Police Department. And we have seen signs of corruption. There's evidence of them lying on the record and them not disciplining people when they do things wrong.
Yeah. It's disheartening to say the least. It feels like Groundhog's Day, where we wake up every morning and we get the same thing happening every single day. The sad part of it is it's Groundhog's Day, but we switch out the names of Black people who were killed. And the only other thing I'll say about this, George, is I just feel like this is clear evidence that this system never intended to deal with us in good faith from the beginning. The powerful never intended to allow the Constitution to actually be applied to us. The Second Amendment, the NRA has opposed Black people dealing with the Second Amendment since the Black Panther Party. They were more than happy to make sure that gun laws were instituted in California underneath Governor Reagan at the time because they didn't want Black folks parading around with guns, right? So there's plenty of precedent to show that the Constitution, as so much as it concerns for white folks, conservatives in this country, the Constitution is really only limited to them. And they're trying to make moves to make that reality. And I think people really realize they're not playing games. The same people who will look at George Floyd being murdered after 9+ minutes, they will look at that and say he wasn't murdered. Those are the same people who will look at every other situation that's going on and tell us that the sky is green and the grass is blue because they never intended to deal in good faith, because they know if this country was ever just, their inadequacies and mediocrity would put them at the bottom of the totem. But I digress.
Well, Ben, I am going to, of course, I will continue to follow developments in regards to Amir Locke. I'm hoping to hear from his father, who does stay in Minnesota. He lives here locally. And I know that the family likely will continue to pursue a civil lawsuit against the city. So we'll see how that turns out. But it's disheartening. And to your point about the Second Amendment, when you think about Philando Castile, you think about Amir Locke, what is this system telling us? If you're Black black and you have the legal, certification to have a firearm, it really doesn't matter.
That's right.
That's what these outcomes are showing us, that, yeah, the Second Amendment is there, but in essence, if you're black, you're a legal firearm owner, and you have an encounter with the police, they have the right to kill you.
Period.
That's what these situations are telling us, that your rights are not protected.
Yeah. Yeah, Georgia, that seems to be the score. And I think the sooner more people realize that's the asymmetrical nature, that's what America is. That's what America has been. And for us to continue playing around and say, oh, no, critical race theory, this, all the excuses that they're running out of excuses. And they're running out of time, which is why I feel like we're seeing such an uptick in the absurdity from conservatives and people who deny that racism even still exists. We've seen an uptick in their stupidity, their ignorance, their flagrant. I feel like we're at the death pangs of white supremacy, where this is the last hoorah, but they are giving it their very best. And as a result, like, black people are still dying in these streets, and they're still lying and telling us to not believe our eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you've described it to a T, the death pains. And I hope that's what it is. I hope that white supremacy is dying off. I hope that our future generations do not have to be subject to this system, If
there are future generations.
Especially when you look at what is happening with our environment.
Yeah. And we just had a chance, Georgia, I had a chance to talk about the 11 out of 13 bodily samples that were taken from a study, taken from lung tissues of patients who were undergoing surgery. And 11 out of those 13 patients were found to have microplastics in their bloodstreams, which is the first in history. If you add that and juxtapose that with this new report, with this new news that the GOP, the Republican Party, they want a bill that says that Biden cannot declare climate emergency. Real Emergency Act clarifies that the president cannot himself unilaterally act to prevent climate disaster. I want to read a couple of notes from this and get your thoughts on it, Georgia. Several Republican lawmakers yesterday introduced legislation known as the Real Emergencies Act to clarify that the president cannot use climate change as the basis to declare a national emergency. The House Progressive Caucus wrote President Biden urging him to unilaterally declare a national climate emergency and ban fossil fuel development. This sparked a backlash of 12 Republicans to band together to create the Real Emergencies Act, and the Republicans feigned concern about the ability to be energy independent and competitive advantage in fossil energy production. Now, this is the last part here. The Real Emergencies Act makes clear that the Republicans want to label climate change as a false emergency. I don't know how much clearer it should be to every human being on the face of the planet, particularly in this country, that we're dealing with anti-science Neanderthals who will run us right over into the cliff of oblivion for no other reason than money, Georgia, because this is we are at the precipice. We are living in a climate disaster right now, right? And yet we have politicians who make it their life's mission to ensure that we can't do a damn thing about it.
Yeah, and not only are we living in climate disaster, but when you talked about this study that shows the ailments that are showing up in the human body as a result of the pollution in our environment. And so, I mean, think about certain species that have become extinct.
That's right.
Are we next? I mean, we are polluting our earth so much, our environment so much that we're polluting ourselves. And this is like a lower level study that's being done on individuals, but how do you study and examine the impacts that has on an individual's reproductive system, and then the impacts that has on their children. And so I I remain deeply concerned because the people who are in position to intervene and do something and declare an emergency so that resources can be allocated and so that legislation can be passed to, undo some of the damage that's been done. Those people are fighting against, like you said, fools who don't care. Right. They simply do not care about your health. They don't care about your children's health. They don't care about the health of this world. What they
don't care about their own children's health. Yes,
no,
exactly.
They only care about the health of their account, their bank account, the health of their wealth. That is the only thing that they care about.
That's right. The health of their wealth and the health of their bank accounts. Georgia Ford, we're going to have better days. Today is not one of the good days, but it is our job to break the news to the people without breaking them. And I think one of the things that we can learn from both of these stories is that when we're dealing with bad faith actors who will ignore the evidence right in front of their eyes, we can't spend a lot of time debating them. We have to get political, economic power to fight back, because without it, they're going to ignore all of the evidence right into climate disaster and right into more Black people being killed.
That's right. Well, and I want people to feel empowered that they're in a position to do something about it. We talk about the things that are happening in the world because on so many other outlets and networks, these stories don't get airtime. It's as if these things are not happening. But just because you turn a blind eye or you don't talk about it doesn't make it go away. It doesn't fix it. Right. And so I hope people who are listening, who are watching, feel empowered to do something. And to seriously ask yourself, yes, acknowledge, okay, these things are happening. But I believe that light will always outshine darkness.
Come on.
But are you going to be the light? Are you going to rise to the occasion? Are you going to be the person in your nook of the world, in your community, at your job, in your school, at your church, whatever the things that you're involved in? What are you bringing that is going to see change, And so while, yes, it can be hard to talk about these things, and while, yes, we have seen better days, I just hope that these stories inspire people to get up and do something. And
that's right.
And for some people, I know that it's difficult to hear the bad news, but we can't ignore it. We can't act like it doesn't exist. We have to figure out a way to turn it into fuel so that we become the catalyst for the change that we want to see in the world. Otherwise, if we leave it up to them, we know where we're headed, right?
Yeah.
So the best thing is to be the change that you want to see.
Absolutely. Georgia Ford, we're always blessed to have you with us. Thanks so much for what you're doing. Be safe out there.
You as well.
We'll be back. Coming up, like it or not, it's about to go down.
Can trees poop? Yes. How else do we get number 2 pencils?
Y'all know what time it is. Good morning, y'all. Get your coffee, your tea, drink whatever it is you need. It's time for Like It or Not, y'all.
Shut up, Roller Dragon. Says Bubba like broadcasting from Iowa. These jokes so corny. Shut up, Roller Dragon.
Like we're supposed to, interviews and all the news. We get to choose what gets the views. Like it or not, with Queen Azor. It's starting now, so stick around. Like it or not, it's going down.
I may or may not be working on another song. We'll see. Y'all will find out soon.
Rebecca Azor is coming through. You know she got a good story for you. Oh, Benjamin, that's my dog. This is his show. He's a politics pro. I am your DJ exclusive.
Well, OJ, yes, I am. I'm gonna drop all the bars.
Stay dropping them jams. Like it or not, it's going down.
I got my brother's eyes, my mother's eyes, and my father's nose. But I think my brother got the better deal. He inherited their house and their money.
It's starting now.
Elizabeth Longs, good morning. What's to be good? Y'all know what time it is.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning and welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth
and not care who doesn't like it. Good morning, Benjamin Percy Dixon.
What's going on, DJ Exclusive? Listen, Phoenix. My middle initial has every word. I'm sorry, I was just reading the message. Go on, man. How you been? I'm not paying you any mind. How you doing? I'm not paying you any attention. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, Penelope. It's all right. I'm good. Doing good. I'm tired this morning.
Man, listen, I woke up at 2:45 to like the biggest thunderstorm I think I've ever been in. But everybody else was sleeping really good. And I got up and tried to be a dad and say, let me go check on my babies and make sure they're not scared. They were in there snoring good, sleeping right through it. My butt went back to sleep for like 10 more minutes, and then I've been up ever since. So I identify with the fatigue that you're feeling this morning. Good morning to everyone at Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us. Rebecca Zor will be with us momentarily. James, what you been up to, man? We got a lot of news, but I want to just take a minute and just chill and just say, what's up, man? I'm tired of all this stuff that's happening around the world.
Man, Polly, I'm just trying to do what it do.
Just try to do what it do.
Phoebe, Paige,
what?
Patrick, Polly, Paris. Palas. Pandora. I don't know. I don't even have anything good to. I don't have anything good to add to it. Like my middle name is Paul. Okay, my middle name is Paul. It's been Paul all my life, and I have been called Percival before, James. So that's not new. I've also been called Purcell.
No, Percy.
Purcell.
Well, my dad's name actually was Percy.
Percy,
and I've been called Percy. So no, I mean, it's a P. Why is it such a big deal? It's a P. I mean, what's your middle initial?
That's my favorite one, Benjamin Princeton Dixon.
As a white guy, I really don't want to share mine.
Wait a minute, who said Princeton?
Me.
Did the only white person in our entire organization actually just jump out here?
That wasn't me. That was definitely not.
That was me. You can't get on with David now.
I just realized that my middle initial, without knowing what the actual name is not a good look for me.
Oh Lord, what is your middle initial?
K.
DKG. Right, David?
But it's not a bad name.
No. How many Ks?
1.
I hate you, B.
Now listen to the audience. I want the audience to understand. Me and David are like brothers. So I joke with him on air like this, but he knows that when I get off the air, I'm calling him like, hey man, I ain't go too far, did I? You good? I was just joking. So good morning to everyone.
It's not a bad name when you actually know the name, which is Keith. But I just realized that's not a great initial to have.
DKKG. Anyway,
David got a black middle name, Keith. Okay, Keith. Hey, Keith.
The real reason we have. I just want to say everything I'm about to say right here is a joke. I know a lot of people like to soundbite my shit. So what follows is a joke. Never mind. I don't think I could pull that one off. I digress. I'll say it at the after party. It was going to be a really edgy white. It was. Y'all were going to call me racist after that one, but I'm not going to give you ammunition this morning. Let's go to some news. You know what? David, would you please find the video of that the gorilla woman, the one whose face looks like she works for Geico, the one who was calling all the Democrats Marjorie Neanderthal Green. Can you find the video of her talking about?
Did you say gorilla woman, Ben?
Yeah, the gorilla face. She has this mush face, like somebody just pushed her really hard when she was in the womb. Like maybe they attempted to abort her and they didn't really do a well job, and they got hold of her face, and so she's now a living, walking Neanderthal amongst us, who has decided to declare every person who supports the black woman running for or that was nominated to the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson. She's labeling them all as pedophiles. Right.
Wow.
So this is where we are now in politics. Now, if you support this black woman for the Supreme Court pick, you're being labeled as a pedophile. So, yeah, she's a mush face Neanderthal that probably should have been aborted.
Oh, Jesus.
I haven't had a day off in a minute, James. I think I'm going to take a vacation.
I'm leaving that alone.
Yeah,
I don't care, man.
Yeah, so
it's true though.
Her name is Alice, like the first human. That's the look she's given. Was it Alice? I think it was Alice.
No. I like Alice. We're gonna leave Alice out of this. She looks like she works for Geico. Remember the Neanderthal commercials? It's so easy.
Oh,
a caveman could do it. Politics is so easy. Neanderthals like Marjorie Taylor Greene can do it. That's where we are, folks. Not only that, but she's also, it's not just her, though, bro. The entire Republican Party is in this space now where they are literally going to get people killed, right? They're out here attacking Disney. They're out front protesting Disney because Disney is not anti-gay and anti-trans. Right. They had a whole protest out there. And then online, I just want y'all to understand why I have no problem escalating my rhetoric to the point of cancel me. Don't give a damn. Because these people are telling folks to bring ammunition to Disney World. Jack Probasiak, who is a right-wing white nationalist provocateur, put on, and it's gone viral on Twitter, some 20,000 likes, I believe, a picture of Disney calling Disney groomers. And at the bottom, it says, bring ammo. So, bro, we're dealing with actual leaders who gonna get people killed. So if I say the world would have been a better place if Marjorie Taylor Greene's parents had aborted her, I mean that. Because these people are going to get actual living people killed while they're running around here pretending like they're pro-life. No, you're pro-Neanderthal, Marjorie, and pro-mush-face. And I know. Oh, okay. I'm gonna stop there. I can stop there. That's enough. Let's keep going. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean this. You had the clip. Okay, run the clip of this thing.
Point, though, where the Democrats are the party of pedophiles. The Democrats are the party of princess predators from Disney. The Democrats are the party of teachers, elementary school teachers trying to transition their elementary school age children and convince them they're a different gender. This is the party of their identity, and their identity is the most disgusting, evil, horrible things happening in our country. And that's why we have to say it. We have to be willing to say it, and no matter how many little blue check marks get their feelings hurt on Twitter. Okay. So, it's worth.
So it's worth. We have to be willing to say it. This person is
You got a blue check mark on Twitter? She was talking to you.
No, I don't have a blue mark on. She has a blue mark on Twitter. I only have a blue one on Facebook. They don't. Twitter's a little bougier with those blue check marks. But the point is, man, it's like this is where we are, man. We are really at the point where morons like this. So I mean, like, white people, aren't y'all embarrassed of people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and hell, Donald Trump? Like, I would be so embarrassed if there was a black person out there representing us. Do y'all remember the clip of the black Republican football player? What was his name? Running for Senate, I believe, in the state of Georgia. I will find the clip, but Herschel Walker. Yeah. Now, see, if that brother was running, saying that he actually was running for black people, because he's not running for black people. He's up there on stage with Donald Trump. And it's only fitting that he has the comprehension skills of a sloth, right? That's because he's in the right audience. If a black person who actually meant black people well went out and was as objectively stupid as white conservative Republicans are in this country, we would sit their asses down, would we not? Just what it is. Sorry, James. Sorry. I don't mean it. Maybe I should. You want to take a break? Because I can only go up from here. No. We'll lighten the load.
Well, since we're if you want to lighten the load, I can't help you. I was going to.
Not really. Let's keep going. What we got?
Well, if you're talking about the state, if you're talking about pedophiles, you can go to the state that seems to be obsessed with them, Florida, and then Texas.
Oh, Matt Gaetz, 1st Congressional District of Florida, who wants to call Democrats pedophiles. Which really, let's just be real, right? When they label Democrats pedophiles, they are labeling every single person who disagrees with them as somebody that they could kill, that they could justifiably kill, right? They said, bring ammo to Disney. They are advocating for mass violence in the name of stopping pedophilia when Matt Gaetz from the 1st Congressional District of Florida is under investigation for sleeping with an underage child. There's also a Republican who was 42 years old. Do you have that one, David? The 42-year-old Republican who married a 17-year-old girl who was receiving a scholarship from him. Ladies and gentlemen and non-gender conforming individuals, the GOP stands for Grand Old Projection. They just passed a law in Tennessee making it okay to marry kids of any age. What the entire hell is going on in this country when you got the bottom of, you guys have got the dregs of society. You went and got not the fries at the bottom of the bag, but the toe jam at the bottom of your socks. And you brought and elected them. You elected the toe jam of your community to Congress and to the White House, for that matter, goddammit. Donald Trump trying to come back in 2024. And I'm afraid, despite all of this clear evidence, that we are being governed by fucking primates. Donald Trump might just get his orange gorilla self back in office in 2024.
Well, we definitely are being governed by primates when you look at what Abbott and DeSantis announced yesterday.
Yes. Okay. So now you really are going to make me go a little bit deeper. David, do we have that in our notes here? I don't see that one. Oh, here it is. Florida and Texas say they're sending immigrants back to Biden. Let's go one step further. All right. So now not only is everybody who supports Ketanji Brown Jackson a pedophile supporter, according to the Republican Party, not only is anybody who is, it doesn't attack Disney, this is where we are. Let's go one step further. They are declaring that they're going to charter buses to send illegal immigrants to Washington, D.C. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, and we have a clip, claims that Texas will provide charter buses to transport, quote unquote, hordes of illegal immigrants to Washington, D.C. He will not be outdone, Governor DeSantis. He also joined in on the conversation. Let's first listen to Greg Abbott and his foolishness.
To help local officials whose communities are being overwhelmed by hordes of illegal immigrants who are being dropped off by the Biden administration, Texas is providing charter buses to send these illegal immigrants who have been dropped off by the Biden administration to Washington, D.C. We are sending them to the United States Capitol, where the Biden administration will be able to more immediately address the needs of the people that they are allowing to come across our border.
Is there a place in D.C. that you all are planning to send these migrants to? Is there a designated area you guys have in this plan?
The first location will be the steps of the United States Capitol.
What?
Yep.
So you're just going to drop them off at the steps of the
Somebody
Capitol,
should
right?
drop him off. Let me stop. I'm pushing on cancellation this morning, folks. Let's go over to Governor Opie, one of literally the dumbest people I have ever seen in person. I mean, the most ill-fitted suits that you're going to find in America are going to be on Governor DeSantis, as he could not help himself joining in the idiocy from Florida.
If businesses or contractors are dumping people who are illegal into Florida from southern Texas, we're going to go after their ability to do business in Florida. If Biden is dumping people, which he has dumped people, they fly them in at 2 a.m. They haven't done it lately, but they did it many months ago. We now have money where we can reroute them to sanctuary states like Delaware, and we're going to do that to make sure that we're keeping the state here.
Yeah, the money that y'all have is the money that's supposed to be for people's rental assistance, but y'all keeping all of that shit.
Come on. Talk about it. You see how raggedy his suit looked? Like, I would hope that if I was the darling of the Neanderthal party, that they would at least fund me a decent haircut and a suit. But no, he's perfectly fine. Oh, but it's for branding purposes, right? Because he's trying to make himself seem like the average man, when in reality, he is part of the elite. He's just doing like John Kennedy from Louisiana. John Kennedy put on a fake accent to sound Southern so that he could blend in with the Southerners more. This Opie dude is literally passing legislation, James, the legislation that he signed yesterday, Ron DeSantis. He signed legislation yesterday that is going to force doctors to allow family members to come in and spend their last moments with their family members. Now, during any normal time, most of us would be like, oh, well, that shouldn't be a problem anyway. But we're not in normal times. What he has just signed is a law that is going to force doctors to allow patients who are suffering and dying from COVID-19 to let their loved ones come in and spend some time with them. This is guaranteed to spread COVID even further and guaranteed to get more people killed. Yet he is one of the top picks for the Republican Party nomination in 2024.
And I'll say this, and I do feel that, that's a good thing to let your family in, to be with them. But I mean, can you just think about the amount of effort on the doctors and the hospital staff that would take to sterilize that room and get that room ready to have those types of visitors or guests? Because now you have to, not only do you have to quarantine that room or whatnot, okay, because of COVID, but then you're going to have to quarantine the whole family once they come out, just to be on the safe side. That's and right. I understand it's a hospital, but still, hospital have issues as well too, where they sometimes can't contain everything. Have you seen what all they wear sometimes when they're dealing in hospitals and in emergency rooms?
Bro. They don't care.
Damn full hazmat suits. So I'm just like, y'all are doing all of this. Honestly, I feel it, but no.
At the pandemic, bro, this is a law. I think anybody feels the fact that you should be able to spend your last few moments with, you should be able to spend your last few moments with your family members, for sure. To sign this during a pandemic in which bodies, like, do we not realize that there's still hundreds of people dying literally every day? Right. People are saying we're coming out of the pandemic. We are 2.5 years into this thing now. It is everybody is fatigued. Everyone is tired. I get it. But people are still dying. This is going to let some person who I just seen too many examples of people trying to force their way into COVID wings to say goodbye to their family members when none of them wanted to get vaccinated. And now you want these hospitals to allow an unvaccinated person into the hospital where people are dying of COVID. This is literally going to get Floridians killed. But you ask Republicans around here, Ron DeSantis is the best thing since Donald Trump. That's where we are, bro.
And somebody said it best in the chat, Six Dragon Daddy did, saying that he probably is going to pass some kind of addendum or another law that basically says those visiting the hospital won't have to wear masks. I believe that, most definitely.
And you know what? You know what else he's going to do? Because of the hospital lobby, right? Because there's big money in healthcare, you guarantee that these hospitals aren't going to be held liable for the people who come in their hospitals and die because they let them come visit their loved ones, right? The most prominent sign I know we're talking about Florida, but the most prominent sign in Georgia, James, I know you've seen this because I saw it everywhere, is basically the sign on the outside of every business that's saying, according to Georgia law, this company cannot be held liable and you take your own risk coming into this company of COVID-19, right? That was like the one law that Georgia made sure that they passed to make sure that none of the businesses that operated during the pandemic could possibly be sued from people who got sick at their establishment or one of their loved ones who died at their establishment. I guarantee you, if that law is not already in the books in Florida, he's going to have to sign that too, because there will be people who die as a result of Ron DeSantis, period.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's already people that died because of this man. So he already has blood on his hands.
Big facts, big facts. One more quick story, man, and then I think maybe I'll be able to woosah. Actually, I can woosah on this story. I can woosah on this story because it's actually good news, man. It's President Biden, who, and we got two clips, President Biden and Jen Psaki, they're making comments about the Amazon labor union. More specifically, President Biden said something that was kind of dope yesterday. He said, Amazon, here we come. Speaking of the Amazon labor union movement, which was headed up by Christian Smalls. Now, Joe Biden didn't mention Christian Smalls and, whatever. But he did say this, and I do want to acknowledge that it absolutely means something for the president of the United States to be encouraging the unionization efforts in the manner in which he did yesterday. So I'm just going to let this clip play. Here's Joe Biden giving a shout out to the Amazon labor unions.
That's what unions are about, in my view, about providing dignity and respect for people who bust their neck. That's why I created the White House Task Force on worker organization and empowerment, to make sure the choice to join a union belongs to workers alone. And by the way, Amazon, here we come. Watch.
And can I ask, President Biden today told union members, Amazon, here we come. Was he endorsing the efforts of workers to unionize Amazon facilities?
What he was not doing is sending a message that he or the U.S. government would be directly involved in any of these efforts or take any direct action. What he was conveying is his longtime support for collective bargaining, for the rights of workers to organize, and their decision to do exactly that in this case. Something that he has long supported broadly over the course of his career.
I wish we would split that one up because, Jen Psaki just took all the joy out of it for me. Of course, not saying that the federal government is going to act something in favor of unions other than just recognize them. That's just the fact that we get the United States of America to recognize unions is actually didn't come without life and limb, right? So no one had an expectation that Joe Biden meant that he was going to actually use the government to do something for the people, because we can't even get voting rights protected in this country. We can't get the George Floyd Reform and Justice Act passed in this country from Joe Biden. We can't get student loans canceled. So Jen Psaki, nobody thought for a second that Joe Biden was actually going to do something about it. We just thought it was cool to have the president of the United States say that he was down with unions because, well, hell, everybody should be down with unions unless you own the company. Why are managers should be down with unions too? But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. Unless you own the company, be a part of a union.
Let me tell you, Ben, while I was working with another company, when I was deep in my food service stuff, we were, there was starting to be talks of a union. And when we first found out, they just had this big meeting with all the managers and was don't open any packages or anything. If anybody comes to give you anything that's sealed, don't take it, don't open it. I'm just thinking to myself, well, damn, we trying to make sure we do right by these people. And y'all basically telling us no to a union. Just any propaganda for a union. If anybody comes and asks about a union, we just have to deny. And when I tell you, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not feeling working for this company anymore. That's not how you handle
big
business.
facts.
If the people, if this is what the people want, let's give the people what they want. But it was such a dictatorship that it didn't even matter. But man, it's like dealing my whole little process dealing with that. I'm just like, yeah, this is my way out the door right here. I'm on my way.
Man, listen, I don't know. Maybe because I guess if you've ever grown up poor, working class, if you ever had to wake up at 6 a.m. to get to work, 5 o'clock in the morning to get to work, or if you ever got off at midnight and had to catch a city bus back, if you're in a city, lucky enough to have a city bus, right? If you've had that experience, then you have that kind of response that you had to that, James. And I think there are a lot of people in life who don't realize just because you've been out of that hustle and that grind for a year, and you're now a middle level manager and you're making $50,000 a year, bro, y'all are just one check away from being in the same exact condition as the people that you're trying to stop from unionizing. And it just blows me away that when people sometimes they get to 50,000, they think they've made 60,000, 70,000. Oh, I'm a senior vice manager. I'm a regional representative. And then they become the executors of destroying the workers from unionizing, from getting some livable wages, man. We're talking about people being able to pay their bills. And you have companies like Amazon who spent about $4.3 million doing shenanigans like you just talked about, James. They spent $4.3 million in consultants, anti-union consultants, trying to stop Christian Smalls, a black man, and everyone else that was involved, because it doesn't happen in isolation, trying to stop them from unionizing. And it doesn't happen, right? These things don't get crushed, right? Just because it gets crushed because, well, the owners don't want unions. They simply do not want people to have organizing ability. But anyway, man, I don't want to. That's a thing for me, man. I get triggered when labor is treated crappy. That's a thing for me.
Most definitely, Ben. And then, crap, I was about to tell you something else too, but I sure can't remember. Oh, yeah. Jimmy Kimmel actually did a monologue, and part of his monologue, I think it was last night before last, he talked about Amazon, and he had those words that Amazon has restricted from being searched.
That's right.
And a lot of those words were union, pee bottles, and a lot of the stuff that we have covered here on this show, just to let everybody know. But the monologue was extremely funny, especially dealing with Amazon. Hilarious.
I would love to play that, but when we played Corden yesterday, YouTube was like, they blocked the whole damn video, the entire video.
Not the whole stream.
No, they took down the whole, I told y'all, but it was funny. It was worth it. But good morning to... Oh, wait a minute. I thought, my bad.
My name is Rebecca.
Rebecca, I know who you are. Good morning, Rebecca. We're going to bring you in properly, but here you are. Good morning. How are you this morning, sis?
Right.
How am I
and
taller?
that's good.
Look,
while Rebecca
right
talks,
here.
let me reset my connection because I look like I'm on FAMU internet.
Dude.
It was about to get a whole introduction.
To put my mic on. I mean, I just don't. Anyways,
James,
good morning.
Good morning, Rebecca. We're gonna chat a little bit. James got to get out of here for a second so he can reset. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing good.
When you said 9:30, you meant on the Dizzot. How you doing?
I did, because I was on the Hill this morning.
Oh, how'd that go?
It was cool. It was triple R. It was Ryan, Robbie, and Rebecca. So, okay. I guess the person that was supposed to be there, they didn't come. But, and I kept it nice and light because I'm going to rip everybody a new one on Twitter about Title 42. And, I've already talked about this a million times. If you don't know where I stand on Title 42 and the fact that they utilized it in September, Title 42 is a law that Trump actually put in place, and it was utilized before him, but he brought it back and he put it in place to prevent asylum seekers from getting asylum, and particularly the immigrants were Haitian, right? Since that time that he did that, over 1 million over 1 million immigrants have been sent back with no, to me, due process because they said it was because of COVID, right? If COVID was such a thing to America, why are they removing Title 42 now and still keeping COVID mandates in order, right? This is the thing to me. They, in September, when the Haitians were at the border, they told them, we have to follow due process. We got to follow due process. And I'm like, okay, look, y'all keep speaking about due process. And that's why Biden kept Title 42. And that prevented tens of thousands of Haitians who were at that Texas-Mexico border back in September from getting asylum, from actually having a conversation with somebody who can assist them. And they were in the middle of the night, packed up, and brought to wherever they weren't from in Haiti and dropped off and called that a day. Now we're looking at Ukrainians come here and they're at the border as well. As Homeland Secretary Mayorkas was in an interview a few days ago, he said it's not a double standard. However, we have told ICE officials if they do see Ukrainians, you can waive any due process to let them in. Real conversation. As he said, it's not a double standard. So now when Title 42 does drop, right, the one that prevented Haitians from coming in but there was some leniency and people were allowing Ukrainians to come in. I hope when Title 42 does pass, even though you'll see what's her name, Jen Psaki saying, don't come. She repeated that as well. Still, don't come. The messages don't come. It's still clear. But I hope they flood them borders, and I want to see how they're going to do them. Haitians are already en route. They already are en route. There's videos of them dropping off in Chile and other places. They are ready to make that trek again, because when Title 42 does drop, when Biden says in May, I want them Haitians to flood them borders because I want to see what's going to happen then, and I want to see what the conversation will be then.
Yeah.
I really do.
Right.
But I was pretty cool. I ain't say all that on and it wasn't necessary because if you guys have been following this show, if you've been following me, you know where I stand on that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I know you saw the story. You probably didn't, Rebecca, about what's his name, Punk Boy Abbott, and then the hostess dropping people off at the Capitol.
Utilizing funds. I don't know if we have a David, you could check me, but I don't know if we have that in Assad or whatever. But I think that, yes, Greg Abbott, him saying that if they do come, he's going to take them and he's going to pile them up on buses and have them go over to places like Martha's Vineyard, the Washington, D.C., these different areas, and drop them off over there so those people can deal with them. And it was a list of other places, but Martha's Vineyard included into one of them. It's ridiculous. And then here goes, right behind him, Senator, the guy, you guys know who I'm talking about, that blames everything on his daughter. I don't know why I can get his name right now, but the Texas Senator. Ted Cruz, thank you. Mr. Cruz, I don't know why I couldn't get his name just now, but Ted Cruz is following behind him saying, this is beautiful, this is great, I'm going to join in on this. And it's funny because even though they're saying that they're going to do this, it is voluntary, and they didn't clarify this, but their people clarified this. It's voluntary. If they want to get on the bus and head over there, they can, or to wherever they're dropping them off at. Now listen to me. Immigrants who are looking for a better life, they don't care. Drop me off anywhere. Give me what I need. Right. Is this gonna get me closer to the papers? Cool. Drop me. Like, they think it's a problem. Who wants to be in Texas? Like, do you think they want to be in Texas? They just want to be somewhere in America that they can get their life, they can have a better life. What they're trying to do, Abbott and Cruz and all the other leaders in Texas, I mean, essentially what we're hearing here is Texas don't like immigrants. Texas don't want immigrants. That's really all that is, and they don't want them, so they're going to drop them off somewhere else. Drop them off in Washington, D.C. for what? For what? So that those leaders can deal with them? Drop them off at Martha's Vineyard for what? Like, For what? It doesn't make any sense. It's just that Texas doesn't want to deal with them. It's not making any stance on anything. There's not a clear stance on anything. And so many people are saying that Title 42 should be put back in place. It's hilarious. It's like they're moving it around like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in what America says. It's the land of the free and all of that stuff. It's a melting pot. We take care of the immigrants. We're a blend of so many. This puzzle piece that they keep moving around, this Title 42 puzzle, it doesn't fit anywhere in there. They use it. They throw it out there when they want to. They take it away when they want to. And right now, Republicans are upset. They want to keep it in place because they don't want immigrants to come flooding America, but yet they move things around so that it fits when the Ukrainians need assistance, even though the other immigrants are going through the same things, right? And people want to push back when I say that other immigrants are going through the same thing. Haiti is going through a war. That's very clear. They've been going through a war for the past few years, and the earthquakes that have happened there, the assassination of their president, the hurricanes, these are all back to back. So there are similar situations, and they should be granted the same respect, at the border, but they're not. So we're seeing this fight happen in between, Republicans and Democrats with Title 42. A lot of people think that this Title 42 being removed all of a sudden, they think that it's going to be a good thing. They think that it's going to be a great thing. That's how Democrats are looking at it. They're celebrating this as a win. But I want to see, once it's removed in May, I want to see when them Haitians come to the border, what we're celebrating and how this benefits immigrants. I want to see that.
Right.
Damn.
I look so much clearer. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man. Welcome back. And welcome back to me as well.
You look good, Bubba.
I'm going to say, damn, I look good.
It's giving skin.
Oh, how y'all doing? Good morning.
Oh, man. I just went through. Becca,
I saw you. I see you in the background trying to plug.
You saw me over here hustling. I'm like, click, click, clack, click, click, clack. Let me get this cable over here. I ran to the living room, took a cable off the PS4.
What the hell?
Listen, I don't care, man. Listen, Rebecca, you said something there that really, damn, you're right. Title 42 going away. Put a pin here. We'll see if it's a good thing when we see how y'all treat Black immigrants, Haitians at the border. That's just it in its entirety. And I love that argument because we can just shout it at the top of our lungs as hard as we can. And it's one of those things that they're going to have to intentionally be bigoted and hypocritical with us to do the wrong thing in this instance. You know what I mean? Like, if they do away with Title 42 and the Biden administration treats the Haitians the same way as we saw them being treated when Title 42 was in place, I think that says everything we need to know about Josephus Biden.
Josephus Biden.
Josephus Biden and Benjamin Pablo Dixon.
Joseph Bidon. That tells us everything we need to know about
Benjamin
Joseph Bidon.
Phineas. Is Phineas with a PH? I guess I'm guessing it's with a PH.
Well, it might be with the
Phineas
S.
and Ferb.
Phineas and Ferb. Oh, I haven't seen that in so long.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rebecca, we have gone through the ringer on this episode just because, well, that's the news. The news today is really sucks.
It's trash.
It's been trash, right? The Amir Locke decision. I don't know if you guys had a chance to talk about this on the Hill, but
no, they ain't gonna use me for that conversation. I'll destroy stuff. They treaded lightly. They treaded lightly with this type, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go there and we'll just have a conversation about immigrants. I'm not even gonna talk about it being racist. If you've seen me, you've seen this. I got a show to do. I told them I got a hard stop because I have a show. I told them straight up, I have a show. We'll have this conversation over here because, at the end of the day, with the Amir Locke situation, and I hope Olay, because she's been talking about this a lot, but with the Amir Locke situation, knowing that police officers can bust into your home, no knock, just bust into your home, shoot you while you under the covers.
Saturday morning, watching Saturday. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this kid was watching Saturday morning cartoons, but in the honesty, he was sleeping.
Sleeping.
Like, can you imagine somebody coming into your house while you got a bowl of cereal on the table, chilling just as a kid, and then you can't even get no justice. God damn it.
And then, not only that, when Georgia talked about it as well, I didn't know that they actually kicked the sofa a few times to wake him up. I didn't know that either.
That's right.
After they were already in the house.
Yes, Amir Locke, they were trying to wake him up, and they still killed him. They shot him.
And that's the thing. They knew he was asleep.
And that's why they didn't show that part in the video. See, they tried to save themselves. They constantly try to save themselves. Amir Locke was murdered in cold blood, and there was another thing. And I've been saying this for the past few days. Like you said, this news cycle has been so whack. There's no reason that he doesn't. There was no reason that they came in there for him.
That's right.
There was no reason that they shot him. No reason that made sense. Because if you're in a place where people have to have a license to carry or are carrying or whatever in their homes or in wherever they're staying at, wherever they're laying their head down at, and you bust in there, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to try to protect themselves. But y'all made sure to leave out that detail that when you came in there, it wasn't upon entry instantly that he went for the gun. Y'all saw him, y'all looked down at him, kicked the couch 3 times to wake him up. And this young man died there was no reason. And these cops are still going to be on the force. They're still going to be working. They're still going to be out there. And when we call somebody to serve and protect us, these people may show up. He has no justice. He got no justice. So many of these stories end with he got no justice.
Yeah.
She got no justice. When we think of Amir Locke, we always go into the conversation of Breonna Taylor because it's similar situations. People busting in and shooting you dead, and those cops walking free. Their lives didn't matter.
Period.
Stop putting me on the one shot. Stop putting me on the one shot, Dwayne. It's really dramatic. I know, but then it's dramatic. It's dramatic, and it makes me feel like I need to really because now I start getting really hyped. I want myself up, and now I want to go and march. Now I want to go and take the streets.
I'm giving you.
We egging her on. Boost up.
You up there in full screen. Like somebody can take this and make a clip, and you be shooting off your quotables when you up there full screen.
Yeah,
and also
you do.
You know what I mean? Yeah, nah. You gonna get your full screen.
But it makes me feel like I need to
getting along. Oh,
nah.
It's gonna last for like 1 second, and look, there you go, right here.
It make me feel like I need to shut this camera off. I need to take to the streets, and I need to start protesting.
That's right.
I need to start. You know what I'm saying? Like I get so riled up. But guys, what do we do? You guys, what do we do? What do we do? Ben, what do we do? How?
Organize. We'll talk about that offline. I'm not going to give all the strategies publicly, but no, honestly, without us having political power, we have got to get political power to be able to stop these people. And I know people are saying, well, Ben, we got Democrats in the House, in the Senate, and in the White House. We got to get political power. That's all I'm going to say. And I'll show y'all how the team, we'll talk about that during the production call or something. We'll do that off air. I ain't going to give them our notes on air.
It's really frustrating, though, because I know that we've constantly, we've started movements. I'm not saying that they're not working. We've started movements. The Fed shut Ben down. But we've started movements.
Don't take no time.
and we've had conversations, and we've centered this around we've partnered with big brands for these conversations to be elite, to be at the top. And here we are still fighting the same things, and we're still hashtagging. We're not going to stop hashtagging because this is going to lead to some change, because I'm pretty sure when our ancestors were going through what they were going through or risking their lives, they never they couldn't imagine what it would look like for us to be here today, but they knew one day something would change. And because of them, we are. I have to think of it that way. But and then the ignorant people arguing and pushing back and saying things like, I mean, well, he was. I mean, well, this was. I mean, well, when you say defund the police, I mean, well, watching the Madea, the new movie, Medea's Homecoming, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was a key, right? It was a he. But I don't like that he was giving the message of us saying, don't defund the police. Essentially, he was saying, like, you know, don't, like, y'all sitting here talking about defund the police, but who gonna come when you need them? I'm trying to do Madea voice. I can't really do it.
No,
y'all saying
good,
defund the police, but who gonna come when you need them? Who gonna come when you need them? And then I'm looking like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but you're taking what people say, defund the police. It's not saying get police, all of them off the streets. It's saying, let's take a look at this. Take the money out of giving them guns so much and start putting it into their training. Let's start seeing who the mental aspect of who we're putting on the streets. Do they have any traces of discrimination, like in their history? What does that look like? Can they answer questions? Let's start talking about putting people who know psychological behavior and mental behaviors at the forefront and being the go-to, the first responders, instead of police officers going there, or them partnering together so that they can be the first responders. And if the police assistance is necessary, then the police can do what they need to do. We're talking about defunding the police. I know that this is what defunding the police means. Make that money go somewhere else. Utilize it for the benefit of the police department to do good for us on the streets. I don't want to have to go out on the streets and be black and be going through a mental breakdown and the cop looks at me and says, shoot her.
Okay, listen.
Hello.
I didn't mean to interrupt. And I don't want to play it on the show because I saw a video this morning of, I think that's why I'm so pissed off. I've been pissed off this entire episode because I woke up this morning and I saw a video of a 70-year-old black grandmother being beat. She was having a bipolar incident. And instead of getting mental health services, she got police officers and they bloodied that black grandmother's face up while she was experiencing a mental health crisis. So if you can't tell me anything about defunding the police when these certifiably piggish people would do this to a grandmother.
Ben, where was this at?
I'll get it. I don't know. I saw the tweet, man. I was going to share it, but I was like, no, because I didn't want anybody else to be triggered, but I'll get it and send it to you.
Our officers.
I don't know if I want to see it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm
I didn't realize.
Oh. It upsets me.
And I'm about to say, instead of y'all giving bonuses and everything to your officers, y'all need to be taking that money and doing a lot more with it, investing into these communities that really need it. We got so much shit going on here in Atlanta. Rebecca, you see it. I know you see it. It's so much going on here. Y'all giving the cops here bonuses, but yet we still can't control the damn gun violence in the community.
There's a shortage. There's a shortage so much in policing right now that they're just inviting everybody to the boys club.
Yes.
I told you guys I was dating some guy who is a sheriff, and I told y'all that was iffy because he dropped that on me after the fact. But and he was telling me how I tried to get into Atlanta PD. They didn't want me, so I went over and just tried out to be a sheriff, and they got me. And so I'm like, he's like, there's not much that really goes on. It's like the boys, if you're clicked up, that's what it is. It's a big click and they're giving them money. We heard Joe Biden recently. Student loans, he's pausing. And I feel like you could get that money to us so that he's giving, billions of dollars. He's putting it back into the police department. He's happy. He's saying this with so much fervor. He's saying we're not about defunding the police. I'm like, okay, so what are we doing? He's like, well, he loves, it's like almost, this is how he throws it out there at the people who said defund the police, or even the people who said abolish the police, or even the people who said the police ain't doing, they racist, police don't do right. Like the system is not created to protect black people. It's like he throws it out there to say, well, we're going to protect police officers. It's like he's the thin blue line person. It's like he is someone who is saying blue lives matter. It's like he's doing that. because a lot of the black issues that people are saying, or issues for people of color, or issues of people of homelessness, or issues with people who are poor, all of us that are just sitting right here, he's doing things that are opposite of what helps those people.
That's right.
Just recently, again, they talked about an Asian hate crime bill again, or something that benefits the Asians, which is great, y'all. But I have not heard that man say anything about black folks. I just don't get it. He's not really having the conversations about black issues.
Right.
The reason this matters so much, Rebecca and James and everybody, I dropped it in Slack, but I didn't drop it for us to share, and you'll see why. I don't want to put this one on the show, and maybe we'll discuss it afterwards, and maybe we'll do it tomorrow. But there's just a level of inhumanity, Rebecca, that they have when they look towards us, when they could do something like this on an ongoing basis, and then turn around and look at us and tell us that we're the crazy ones for speaking out against it. And now what they're doing is they're passing laws so that if laws have been presented, let me use my language very clearly, in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, there have been laws presented that would give regular citizens the right to kill protesters if they feel like their life if that protest is a threat to them. Yeah. Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana, look it up. So what they're trying to do is create a situation where they are free to dehumanize us and kill us. And if any of us start to protest, then now they're going to be free to do that. So to kill us. The problem is, and you mentioned Tyler Perry, there's just so many people who have an overly simplistic understanding of the world. Mm-hmm. No shade to Tyler. Probably would love to do work with him in the future because, I used to bootleg his stuff. So why not? I've worked with him in the past.
Love him, mean it.
Who didn't?
Yeah.
But brother, if you don't understand that these funds are being extracted from our community and given to people who can go out here and beat up black grandmothers and laugh about it, then maybe you shouldn't be playing a black grandmother.
Oh, Ben, I like that. I like that. I think
it's one of those things where he's trying to you're attempting to change the narrative or guide a narrative about defunding the police and everything, but bro, you just it didn't come off well.
Exactly.
It didn't come off well at all.
It wasn't helpful at all. It wasn't helpful.
It wasn't helpful at all.
When I watched it, I saw him trying to bipartisan it. And
diversity and inclusion it.
Yes,
yes, the hell he
diversity
did.
And inclusion that. And I said, it's not going well. It's funny. I'm like, things about this is funny, but in some cases, I'm sorry, you got to pick a side.
Yeah.
You got to pick a side.
That's right. You can't be one or the other. Pick a goddamn side.
Right.
You stick with it. You really do. And I know that he was trying to, because I know that he's removed himself in a way from the Christian talking points in his movie. So he's trying to do more of a positive talking point where it's like kumbaya. This is not giving kumbaya. People are dying behind this, my guy. People are dying behind this, my guy. People are protesting about their brothers, sisters, cousins, fathers. People are dying behind this. So please be careful. I know you got so much money, but police officers don't even care about that. We saw what happened with Ryan Coogler. Okay? Police officers will protect them, their own people who look like them. We saw what happened with the young woman who went missing from the Bumble date. We saw the police officer said that this person he seemed like a good guy.
A good guy.
Most recently,
the spa shooter.
Yeah,
had a bad day.
Spa shooter. He had a bad day. Kyle Rittenhouse, a good kid. Good kid. Just, he did what he had to do for his country. He was protecting his country, right? We seen what they did with Dylan. They fed Dylan, what is his name? The shooter from the church, Dylan Roof. And they fed him Burger King for his deeds before he went in. But black folks
playing in the park.
mental breakdowns, playing in the park, playing with toy guns, just walking with the hoodie on, Skittles. From a man that ain't even a police officer. It's folks out here perpetrating police officers and still getting treated as you did the right thing kind of thing. It's so many people just sleeping, driving.
Oh, buying a BB gun at Walmart. John Crawford III. Didn't even have it. Didn't stand. He was on the phone carrying a BB gun to purchase. Some white person got scared, called the police. Police came in and killed him.
Yep.
I mean, that's just one of the many stories that we all know and have experienced. Like, it's so close. We know people who have died.
So many. But what they'll say is sometimes I saw this one where a young 12-year-old or something was on the street with his friend. I don't know if he was Hispanic, white, or black. I don't know. But either way, police officers abuse their power. Police officers in plain clothes were, I think, watching him. Then they pulled up on him, and I guess he had a gun. I'm not sure. And he went to shoot at them. They shot him down and killed him. And people were like, oh, he deserved it. He should have never. Are you guys human? Because when it circles round back to your door, now you're going to be looking for us to be in the street protesting for your child. Because you guys are in this conversation, starting these arguments. Ma'Khia Bryant, she deserved that. So she deserved in that moment when she was clearly having a mental situation herself, a baby girl, for a cop to literally come out and shoot on sight. Did she deserve that?
Yeah.
Make it make sense. People are saying, well, the cops got it right this time. The cops got it right this time. And then they'll utilize these moments where seemingly the cops got it right and say, this is what black folks are doing. Cops are saving our lives. And then they'll use those moments. But if you juxtapose that to the many deaths, the many murders at the hands of police officers, the cover-ups that are now coming out, investigations, cops on leave, on paid leave. If we juxtapose that to that many, it's nothing, y'all. It's nothing.
And looking at this story that you dropped me in, I've been over here reading it, going through it. This happened last year in October, and this lady, the older lady, was in the store for over 4 hours. So she came in, was in a U-Haul, and went to the bathroom and locked herself in the bathroom. And this is probably because she knew that she was having an episode. Locked herself in the bathroom. Then the police came because the of course, store people called, the assistants called the police on her. And here they are. They knocked on this door for 15, 17, almost an hour trying to get her out. And she's asking the question, why are y'all doing this to me? She's like, y'all are going to kill me. Leave me alone. And of course, the white cops are sitting there. Oh, this is going to be fun. I love my job. Ha ha ha. Stupid bitches. Y'all can't do that, man. That shit pisses me. It really pisses me off because it's just like, y'all. And then this is the part that really messes me up and just like really pisses me off because they say they hope to have someone from their mental health department or the department that handles that to come through, but no one was available. So out of all that time that she was there in that bathroom, no one was available. At one point, no one became available.
You see? This is the type of thing that bothers me. And then they turn on each other. I saw a cop trying to reprimand a man that they already had him in handcuffs and he was already in the back of the squad car. And this cop is yelling, and if I find the video, we'll play it tomorrow or something, but the cop is yelling at him and saying, all kinds of just obscene things, right? Just cursing him out. Turns around and the cop says, I will, in some way, I guess, insinuates that he's gonna kill him. Like, don't play with me. I'm a cop. And this is a white man speaking to a black person. Now, the woman sees what he's doing, and she's a cop. She goes behind him and tries to pull him back, like, yo, chill. Like, let's not do that. Like, sir. He turns around, grabs his fellow cop by the neck, pushes her into the other squad car. And he said, don't you ever touch me. Don't you ever put your hands on me. And then she's looking like, what the heck happened? She remains calm, and she's trying to explain to him. And then he goes back and starts cursing out the assailant, and then turns around and says to her, like, I'll see you after this. Cops abuse their authority
absolutely
every single day. When I lived in NYC, I was on a stroll with my then boyfriend, because I'd be in these streets. I had a lot of boyfriends, but I was with my then boyfriend when I lived in New York, and we would walk down the street, and he didn't. At that time, I didn't understand. I knew cops was bad, and I just didn't, whatever. But I wasn't woke per se. Now I'm walking down the street with my man, and we get stopped, and he says, we're walking to our car, and he says, what are you looking at? To my dude, and I don't really think American, so this is a foreign man. He was Russian, so he was like, don't look at me like I'm not looking at you like, well, this is why are we starting an issue? Why are you talking to me? And these be the cops on foot, y'all. Like these be cops that on foot harassing folks. And he looks at him and he says, don't bother me. This damn cop says, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? And he's like, yeah, I am talking to you. Why are you bothering me? Like, I'm just walking to my car with my girl. Leave me alone. He then checks his whole body and it says to my boyfriend, I can plant something on you. I didn't really know what that meant at the time.
Wow.
And then he tells me, he looks at me, he says, you leave. I said, no, that's my man. Like, I'm not leaving to go anywhere. He was like, okay, then I can arrest you too. And I was like, you're not going to touch me. Like, what's going on? But he says, I can plant something on you. He said, you better be lucky I'm in a good mood. And then he walks away. And I think that's ridiculous.
You see my face? It's like, ooh, child, that's a whole lot.
It's a lot. I've been in a lot of bad experiences with police officers. I dated this really fine one in New York too. But anyways, we're gonna go. We're at the end of the show.
To the after party.
So we're gonna
or end the show. Don't matter.
I'll see you guys at the after party. I love you guys so much. Have a happy Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your day. Love you, mean it.
All right, y'all. Woo, what a show today, boy. I swear it was a good one. Anyway, man, if you are not going to the after party, then where the hell are you going? You can get access by going to patreon.com/likeItOrNot, patreon.com/the BPV show. You don't want to miss it, y'all. Love y'all, mean it. Make sure that you stay tuned and subscribe at all times. You don't want to miss it, y'all. Let me see what y'all affirmation is today. Let me see. I may be afraid sometimes, yet I continue. I may be afraid sometimes, yet I continue. Y'all gonna be great today, man. If you're not coming to the after party, enjoy your have fun. It's Friday, Junior, Friday Eve, and all that good stuff. So go be great, man. Enjoy the rest of y'all day, and we'll see y'all at the after party. If not, we'll see y'all tomorrow.
Baby, won't you keep me company? Give me something to do when I get lonely. I got something for you when we get home. If you let me put it down, when I come in town, you should slide on me. Keep your hands on me. On try, baby, I think you should side with me. Say solid one time if you lie with me. Just promise you never lie.
I appreciate you, brother.
Keep the moves on tuck. I know it's all love. Everything good. Keep the vibes on crush. I know it's all good.
I'm over here getting hungry as hell, not watching this damn Burger King side. Damn, y'all really want me to go buy Burger King, huh?